Lilamrita Mena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. We'll continue reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita book. Swamiji mentioned to his disciples, and they got up and began dancing. Tall, thin, Sriyadhisa has his back pocket stuffed with Stay High Forever flyers. He raised his hands and began to dance. Beside him, in a black turtleneck, big chanting beads around his neck, danced Achyutananda, his curly, almost frizzy hair long and disarrayed. Then Brahmananda got up. He and Achyutananda stood facing each other, arms outstretched, as in the picture of Lord Chaitanya's Kirtana. Photographers in the crowd moved forward. The boys danced, shifting their weight from left foot to right foot, striking a series of mm, uh, angelic poses, their large red chanting beads around their necks. They were doing the Swami step. Brahmananda. Once I got up, I thought I would have to remain standing for as long as Swamiji played the drum. It will be an offense. I thought if I sit down while he is still playing. So I danced for an hour. Prabhupada gave a gesture of acceptance by typically Indian movement of his head, and then he raised his arms, inviting more dancers. More of his disciples began dancing, and even a few hippies got up and tried it. Prabhupada wanted everyone to sing and dance in Sankirtan. The dance was a seated swaying and a stepping of bare feet on the rug, and the dancers' arms were raised high, their fingers extended toward the sky above the branches of the autumn trees. Here and there, throughout the crowd, chanters were enjoying private ecstasies. A girl with her eyes closed played finger cymbals and shook her head dreamily as she chanted. A police lady with a very old so can you please turn off this notification? Something popped up on the screen. A police lady with a very old own face and a babushka around her head stared incredulously at the girl. Little groups of old women in kerchiefs, some of them wearing sunglasses, stood here and there among the crowd, talking animatedly and pointing out the interesting sights in the kirtan. Kirtanananda was the only one in a dhoti, looking like a young version of Prabhupada. The autumn afternoon sunlight fell softly on the group, spotlighting them in a golden glow with long, cool shadows. The harmonium played a constant drone, and a boy wearing a military fatigue jacket improvised atonal creations on a wooden recorder. Yet the total sound of the instruments blended, and Swamiji's voice emerged above the mulling tone of each chord. And so it went for hours. Prabhupada held his head and shoulders erect, although at the end of each line of the mantra, he would sometimes shrug his shoulders before he started the next line. His disciples stayed close by him, sitting on the same rug, religiously ecstasy visible in their eyes. Finally, he stopped. Immediately, he stood up and they knew he was going to speak. It was 4 o'clock, and the warm autumn sun was still shining on the park. The atmosphere was peaceful, and the audience attentive and mellow from the concentration on the mantra. He began to speak to them thanking everyone for joining in the kirtan. The chanting of Hare Krishna, he said, had been introduced 500 years ago in West Bengal by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare means the energy of the Lord, Krishna is the Lord, and Rama is also a name of the Supreme Lord, meaning the highest pleasure. His disciples sat at his feet, listening. Rai Rama squinted through his shielding hand into the sun to see Swamiji, and Kirtanananda's head was cocked to one side like a bird's was listening to the ground. He stood erect by the stout oak, his hands folded loosely before him in a proper speaker's posture, his light saffron robes covering him gracefully. The tree behind him seemed perfectly placed, and the sunshine dappled leafy shadows against the thick trunk. Behind him, through the grove of trees, was the steeple of Saint Brigid's. On his right was a dumpy, middle-aged woman wearing a dress and hairdo that had been out of style in the United States for 25 years. On his left was a bold-looking hippie girl in tight denims, and beside her a young black man in a black sweater, his arms folded across his chest. Next was a young father holding an infant, then a bearded young street sadhu, his long hair parted in the middle, and two ordinary short haired middle class men and their young female companions. Many in the crowd, although standing close by, became distracted, looking off here and there. Prabhupada explained that there are three platforms: sensual, mental, and intellectual, and above them is the spiritual platform. The chanting of Hare Krishna is on the spiritual platform, and it is the best process for reviving our eternal blissful consciousness. He invited everyone to attend the meetings at 26 Second Avenue and concluded his brief speech by saying, "Thank you very much. Please chant with us." Then he sat down, took the drum, and began the kirtan again. We'll stop here and continue reading tomorrow. So today's reading is it's almost about like the description how the chanting was happening there at 26 Second Avenue. um, so we can one realization I'd like to share, like how Srila Prabhupada came just with like almost with nothing but like just Srimad Bhagavatam, and we cannot say that nothing because that's everything for us, at least for devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam, he has um, some copies and he's strong. Uh, and now that he has a group of disciples, which is like when in the beginning we're reading, like it is beyond even someone's imagination, right? That very soon Srila Prabhupada, because he was empowered by Krishna, and he was able to make so many like dedicated disciples. It was not very easy to convert them into disciples, but Prabhupada has that something like we cannot say in that capacity. Prabhupada, he was directly sent by Krishna to to help those conditioned souls. So he had group of disciples, and they're so dedicated. Future will read how, like we have not yet covered about Yamuna Mataji even. So those things will come in future. We'll see how dedicated his disciples were, Srila Prabhupada disciples. Here now again towards the last paragraph we read that how Srila Prabhupada mentioned that beyond all the consciousness, there is spiritual consciousness, which is very, very important to revive our internal dormant consciousness for Krishna. So yeah, that's all I have to share for